protest. Joining me now on the panel are Ray Baker with Ray Baker Media, Lauren Victoria Burke, managing editor of Politic365.com, and Jarvis Stewart, chairman and managing partner of Ian Reed LLC. So we continue to see, just a ton of protests every day in Ferguson. It doesn't stop, and we know why, because people are agitated, disappointed, upset, and now we see these leaks, which ironically are always in support of Officer Darren Wilson's, testimony, story,
right.
Yet we still, have not heard from his mouth directly. So it's troubling to say the least, and feels like a setup for what will be a non-indictment. So, starting here, what do you think about that?
Well, I think one of the things that has been largely problematic has been all the speculation that's gone along with the released information. The San Francisco forensic scientist Judy Melanik was on MSNBC even saying my comments were taken out of context, because much of what is alluded to, particularly in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch piece, is this may have happened. This may mean that it happened. This may mean that. And when we're talking about an issue as serious and grave as life and death, and a police officer using lethal force in the murder of another person who was unarmed, may and potentially are not words we're interested in.
Sure, but what bothers me about that, her sort of backpedaling from what she originally said, is that she put out there in the atmosphere that the forensic evidence supported Michael Brown reaching for the gun. And then she backpedaled to say, well, no, I just put that story saying that it coincides with what Officer Wilson said. Now, if I heard another story, I probably could say it coincided with that story. So let's be really clear to say that nobody has said or can corroborate that the forensic evidence only says that Michael Brown was reaching for the gun. It just says there was a struggle in the car. Is that correct?
Well, that's correct. But you see, the thing about this is we see this in every case that involves a police officer shooting somebody dead. In this case, not even a called police officer, not somebody who was called by 911, somebody who happens upon somebody.
Yeah, sure.
We always hear these types of justifications. It's sort of funny to read these stories because the stories are actually consistent with what witnesses have already said on TV, Dorian Johnson, except when you get to the point when the gun comes out of the holster, which to me is a key moment in this. It sounds like the Dorian Johnson sort of rendition of events is basically the officer grabbing Michael Brown with his left hand, taking his gun out with his right hand and going like this and shooting him at the car window, which sounds consistent until you get to the Wilson version, which is there's a struggle in the car for the gun.
And he automatically was going for the gun.
And automatically going for the gun.
He was automatically going for the gun.
In an SUV raised off the ground, which would require him to reach across the cop's lap
which
to
he
get
only
the gun.
got there in the first place because he was pulled into the car. Right, is that right?
Listen, this is a comedy of errors. This is just Keystone Cops.
Yes.
If nothing else should drive folks from Ferguson to vote next time at the local election. Just the last 24 to 48 hours should. I just don't understand how the police department, the police chief, the mayor is not
the prosecutor.
The prosecutor.
How
absolutely.
Anybody can believe that this should be what we believe is the truth.
Common sense has just escaped everybody.
Exactly.
Here.
For African Americans, our tolerance for these things is extremely high because we saw Emmett Till, we saw the four girls get killed at the church.
Absolutely.
We've seen so many things in our history that are outrageous and unfair and unjust that we don't, I think we don't react as sharply as we should given the outrageousness of these stories.
No, absolutely. But I think that people begin to get more outraged and more outraged as they see it, and then the outrageous response begins to happen.
You even have the Attorney General Eric Holder say, listen, I'm exasperated.
Absolutely.
I'm exhausted.
Absolutely.
I can't believe that this is happening in the United States of America in 2014.
And think about it. If that cop was telling the truth, why doesn't he just come out and say it? Like, if that rendition of events is true,
if the cop was telling the truth, why is he hiding? If the cop was telling the truth, right?
A last point about Officer Wilson.